This is CBC Vancouver News.
Tentative transit deal. Coast Mountain and the Supervisors Union have agreed to a mediator's recommendations to help avert a strike. Plus,
it's been helping me keep clean from street drugs for it's over 2 years now.
The program as it is, the policy as it is right now, does not go far enough.
BC's top doctor says it is time to expand prescribed safe supply in the province. And
up to 20-plus shots fired into his home, including up to about 2 feet away from his 6-year-old that was sleeping upstairs and went right by his bed. Quite a horrifying scene for him.
Someone shoots up a home in Surrey. A family is left shaken. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. It was a scary ordeal for a family in South Surrey after someone sprayed their home with gunfire early this morning. No injuries have been reported, but as Janella Hamilton explains, a representative for the family says they are shaken.
The numbers go up to the windows upstairs. That's the son's room.
A series of bullet holes can be seen across the front of this house near 154th and 28th Avenue in Surrey. Police evidence markers showing at least a dozen bullet holes, and the back of this white Tesla parked in the driveway shattered. Inside the house, bullet holes through the window of this room, which Maninder Singh with the BC Gurdwaras Council says is the bedroom of the owner's 6-year-old son.
Up to 20-plus shots fired into his home, including up to about 2 feet away from his 6-year-old that was sleeping upstairs and went right by his bed. It was quite a horrifying scene for him.
Singh identifying the owner of the home as Simranjeet Singh, a well-known pro-Khalistan activist, and according to Singh, a close friend of slain Surrey Temple leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
He was actually just in his living room right there.
Multiple bullets hitting the front door as well. Grant Christie lives across the street from the house. He says he was woken up to what he believes were gunshots.
You could tell the sharp crack and just so quiet. There's something bad. Well, whatever. You jump out of bed and you look out your window to see what's happening, but it's all quiet until a bunch of police showed up, 15 minutes later.
Christie says nothing like this has ever happened in this neighborhood before.
Let's hope that it doesn't escalate, but it's been a pretty calm, quiet street for 20 years. Yeah, it's sad because I saw a couple little kids leaving the house at 2 in the morning.
Mounties calling it an isolated incident.
The investigation is in still very early stages, so motive of this shooting has not been determined at this time.
Singh says the family believes the two shootings are related, but police are not confirming any links to Nijjar, whose death Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleges has connections to the Indian government.
We are aware of the speculation that's going on social media right now, what's been posted. I can tell you that we're working with the family very closely and they are cooperative with us.
Police are urging anyone with information to come forward. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Surrey.
Call it a tentative sigh of relief for transit users across the Lower Mainland. Coast Mountain Bus Company and QP 4500, the Union for Transit Supervisors, say they have agreed to a plan to avert further transit strikes. The two parties say they've accepted the recommendations of special mediator Vince Reddy. QP 4500 represents over 180 transit supervisors in Metro Vancouver. They say they were prepared to strike again if a tentative deal was not reached by Saturday. Neither the union nor the bus company would share details of the deal. Coast Mountain says the next step is to sign a memorandum of agreement before union members vote on it. BC's top doctor is calling for the province to expand its prescribed safer supply drug program. This follows a sweeping review of the benefits and risks of the 4-year-old initiative. It was the first of its kind in Canada. And as Joel Ballard explains, Dr. Bonnie Henry says it is time to forge ahead.
Every day, Claudia visits the Crosstown Clinic in Vancouver's downtown east side, where she gets 3 shots of medical-grade heroin, part of BC's prescribed safe supply program.
I love it because it's been helping me keep clean from street drugs for it's over 2 years now.
The program has been under review by Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry, and today she threw her continued support behind it.
This program, this policy, in its intent, is an important part of the spectrum of medical care that we are providing and that we need to continue to provide for people who use drugs in this province.
But Dr. Henry and those who worked on the review admit it needs some changes.
I would summarize the reach of this policy by saying that it's limited.
Right now, it's estimated that 115,000 people live with opioid use disorder in BC. Yet the current program only reaches just over 4,300. That's less than 4%. But she says despite the small reach, it's had positive outcomes.
The evidence shows that this is promising, but there's not yet strong enough research to say that this is an evidence-based intervention.
The report found some of the key benefits included a drop in the rate of drug poisoning events, a decrease in ER visits, and a reduction in the reliance on the unregulated drug market. But there were risks too, namely diversion, where some of the drugs are making their way to people without prescriptions. CBC News spoke to a drug user who says it's all too common, mainly because the safe supply isn't strong enough.
Anytime anybody on methadone asks their doctor, please give me a safe supply, they're just selling it and they're going to buy fentanyl.
Despite some of the risks, Dr. Henry says it's time to expand.
The program as it is, the policy as it is right now, does not go far enough.
She has made many recommendations to the province, including broadening the availability and types of drugs that can be prescribed, like smokable fentanyl. Moving forward, some advocates say the ball is now in the province's court.
Unless the government makes very bold steps to implement these recommendations, we are going to stay in the same place as we have been for the last 8 years, and that 6, 7, 8 people a day will die.
For its part, the province says it's reviewing the report, adding that it's already implemented several recommendations. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
About a dozen street artists who do not have homes are showcasing their art at an exhibit in Saanich. 2 artists created the Building Bridges showcase after meeting while filming a documentary on homelessness in Victoria. Organizers say it's hard for some street artists to show off their work when they don't have access to phones or social media. They say the event is helping artists feel like a part of society.
And it allows them to feel human again. It allows their souls to come back and not be squashed, not be put underneath something and hidden anymore.
You can see the artwork until February 4th. Groups are also hoping to create a website so street artists can sell their work. The provincial government has now issued an apology for its treatment of children from the Doukhobor community in the West Kootenays. Between 1953 and 1959, about 200 children were taken from their loved ones and confined to facilities in New Denver. The only contact with their families was through a chain-link fence. BC's Attorney General spoke with survivors and family members in Castlegar at a private meeting. Our Corey Bullock is in Castlegar and joins us. Corey, what happened at this gathering?
Well, you can see behind me here in Castlegar at the community center an empty room. Earlier today, hundreds of people were here to hear from Attorney General Nikki Sharma. The government finally made good on its promise to apologize to the Doukhobor community here in the Kootenays after years of government inaction. Let's hear what the Attorney General had to say.
We also talked about a package of $10 million that will go towards a range of things, including health and wellness for the community, but also commemoration and archival work to make sure that never happens again and we don't forget.
Corey, you also spoke with some of the survivors and family members. How are they feeling?
Well, I think understandably there were quite mixed emotions here today, Dan. Over the years, there have been multiple ombudsperson reports calling for this apology, as well as compensation for survivors and family members. I spoke to Lorraine Walton, whose father was taken to New Denver when he was just 6 years old. This is what she had to say.
It's just this big sense of relief and emotions because both of my parents and my uncle are deceased, and they're here with us in spirit, and I think that they heard that apology because there was just this lifting off of everybody, I think, in that room, and those souls are finally at peace.
Overall, there is some sense of relief, Dan, but it's still unclear what exactly this $10 million compensation package will mean for survivors and their families. Tomorrow, the Attorney General will go to Grand Forks for another apology, and a formal apology is expected in the legislature later this month. Dan.
The CBC's Corey Bullock reporting from Castlegar. Thank you, Corey. The village of Pemberton has rescinded evacuation alerts for several properties as flood risks ease. BC's River Forecast Centre has downgraded flood advisories across the south coast and lifted flood warnings for Lillooet and Squamish rivers, although the centre says flow remains high. A group of protesters blocked access to the Port of Vancouver earlier today. They were demanding an immediate arms embargo on Israel because of its ongoing military campaign in Gaza.
Gaza is being bombed right now using Canadian arms that are manufactured right here in Canada, and we're trying to say to the federal government, to Prime Minister Trudeau, to Minister Melanie Joly, that this is against our own rules, and we need to stop right now.
They blocked Clark and Hastings Street as well as the Commissioner Street overpass for part of the morning. That stopped public and commercial truck traffic and forced delays and detours for buses. The Rogers sugar strike is officially over after 4 months. The union, representing 140 workers at the refinery in Vancouver, says members have ratified a new 5-year deal. Details are slim, but the union says it does include increases to wages, health benefits, and maintaining a work-life balance. The union and the refinery were at odds for weeks over the company's demand for 12-hour shifts. Well, today marks the start of Black History Month, and we're going to be bringing you stories throughout February to celebrate. On Saturday, the Visible Drag Brunch is happening in downtown Vancouver, featuring an all-black cast of drag performers. Drag stars Kendall Gender and Rich L gave the CBC's Amy Bell a sneak peek.
Tell us a little bit about what Visible means.
Yeah, so Visible is actually an event that I've been doing in Vancouver since about 2017. Okay. And for me, it was sort of built out of a necessity that I felt as a drag performer in the scene. I just felt like there wasn't a space where I felt comfortable or I wanted to express my racial identity. And something kind of clicked off and was like, I wonder if other performers are feeling this way as well. So, we kicked it off in 2017 and, Rich Al has actually been a part of it since the very beginning, which is really cool. We went through many iterations of it through the pandemic and all of this kind of stuff. We went online and we did the whole thing. So for me, visibility is it's super important. I think visibility really saves lives in a lot of ways because I think it's a way to feel interconnected with other people when you see yourself reflected in another person.
Yeah, and everybody deserves and needs to have that. Yeah. What will be happening at this event? What can people look forward to seeing?
Ooh, it's going to be an array of a bunch of different performances. I kind of leave the stage open to the performers, whether they want to dive into their identity or honestly just showcase something that is, just like fun or uplifting. It's really up to them, and Drag Brunch is an amazing time. If you haven't been to a drag brunch, you are missing out.
I can't think of two better things, drag and brunch. They're both glorious, so why not put them together?
Who doesn't love brunch?
Yes.
As we told you last night, the Vancouver Canucks have made a big trade ahead of the NHL deadline next month.
There's a shot, score!
They've acquired center Elias Lindholm from the Calgary Flames in exchange for forward Andrei Kuzmenko, 2 defense prospects, and 2 draft picks. Lindholm joins the NHL leading Canucks with 32 points from 9 goals and 23 assists.
Rent, mortgage, food, the basics.
Why those costs are tipping some Canadians over the edge. After the break, a closer look at a stark new poll. Stay with us. And welcome to our commercial-free live stream tonight. A wine war is spilling over between Alberta and BC. The Prairie Province's Liquor Commission is trying to stop BC wineries from selling directly to Albertans. Travis McEwen takes us through the grape gripe.
On this wall, there's wine bottles from BC. And some of those wineries got letters this week from Alberta Liquor, Gaming and Cannabis, basically warning them that if they continue direct-to-consumer sales in Alberta, Well, the AGLC would no longer stock their products in their warehouses. Painted Rock Estate Winery is one of 106 BC wineries who received letters stating that AGLC would accept shipments if the company gives written notice, agreeing to immediately stop selling directly to Alberta consumers.
It's the small guys that need the tourists. They need, and this is a collaborative back and forth. If they're going to ship them a case of wine, let them ship a case of wine. Let them remit their taxes and keep these places alive. Because if you start cutting the revenue streams down and get nitpicky like that, it doesn't do anybody any good.
In a statement to CBC News, AGLC says the sales contravene provincial legislation and that with no oversight, it cannot ensure the wine is being sold to adults over the age of 18.
The quantity of those wines that are coming in from the small wineries in BC into Alberta is actually quite small.
Gurvinder Bhatia says higher-end restaurants might be affected the most in this province, but Albertans have a connection to BC wineries.
Alberta is a great place to do business in terms of great consumers, consumers that have a real thirst for knowledge when it comes to food and wine. And by cutting that off, it really is significantly going to hurt the smaller, it's the smaller BC wineries that are going to be affected most by it.
The issue for some winemakers isn't so red and white, and they've hired legal representation to fight the AGLC's demand.
I really love and respect our Alberta customers, and I'm going to ship them wine.
But for now, those wines will stay in Alberta's shelves and in the province's warehouse. Some aging will show which ones continue to be restocked. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
More than 50% of Canadians under 55 fear they could lose their jobs if the economy takes a downturn. That's in a new survey from pollster Angus Reid. As Saurabh Sandhu explains, the data shows financial struggles are rising.
January may be over, but for many, the holiday shopping hangover still remains. And a new poll conducted by Angus Reid is painting a grim picture for the Canadian economy, with more than 50% of Canadians under 55 saying they could not handle a sudden expense of more than $1,000 in the coming month.
1 in 7 in this country say that they couldn't meet any unexpected costs, not a penny. Think about that, 1 in 7 people. So that's maybe a member of your family or a friend or a colleague or somebody you play hockey with or do other recreational activities with.
The poll also provides a reality check on savings in the Canadian households, as 2 in 5 Canadians reported not making any contributions to their TFSA or RRSP accounts this year.
Groceries, rent, just the cost of getting around, your transit pass or the cost of filling, a tank for your car with gas. These are fixed costs that Canadians don't have control over, and it's been eating into their ability to really make ends meet.
An argument that many Vancouverites agree with.
We're trying as best to save money to eventually buy a house. It's getting hard though with the cost of living.
What has changed is I am looking for bargains, and I'm looking for things that I regularly buy, but at places that are cheaper.
More than 50% of Canadians are also reporting a fear of job loss if the economy was to falter.
If you're working, you're dealing with these economic pressures, rent, mortgage, food, the basics. The worry of, oh my gosh, what if I did lose my job? I could lose my job, weighs very heavily, because when you don't have a lot of money and you're dependent on that job to meet your costs.
Curl adds the next few months will be crucial as federal economic policy remains under discussion. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
A new study suggests sea otters are playing an important role in fighting climate change. Their voracious appetites may be helping reduce erosion along parts of the Pacific coast. And as Anand Ram explains, that includes BC shorelines.
Life is pretty chill for otters here along California's central coast. As the top predator, they swim and eat and eat.
They eat about a quarter to a third of their body weight every single day. So whatever they're eating, they're going to have big impacts on that.
Here in this Monterey Bay marsh, the otters are part of a simple but vital food web. There's the dominant plant, pickleweed. Its roots are eaten by shore crabs, and then the otters eat the crabs, thousands upon thousands of them a year.
It was a very, very clever experiment.
Researchers figured out what was happening by setting up zones where otters couldn't get in.
So they take some essentially netting and they build little fences around squares of pickleweed, but they leave a little gap underneath the netting so that the crabs can come and go from the enclosure.
Where the otters could get in showed a dramatic difference.
The pickleweed is healthier and the ground is firmer, and the erosion appears to be less.
It's similar to the effect otters have had in British Columbia over the last 50 years, eating sea urchins and allowing kelp to thrive, which helps fight climate change.
They're photosynthetic organisms, and so they are absorbing carbon. They're sequestering carbon.
There's a similar climate benefit on the California coast. Healthier pickleweed means better shoreline protection.
They're sort of like the first line of defense, buffering the inland areas and inland habitats from sea level rise and from massive storm events.
A key role for these predators just by being their hungry selves. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
There is a live look from the International Space Station, currently over southern Africa near the Democratic Republic of Congo. It circles the Earth every 90 minutes. Back here on Earth, Darius will have your BC-wide weather forecast as we near the weekend after this.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. This is Vancouver Island is the brand new podcast that explores stories of island life. Each week, host Catherine Marlowe looks at the joys and challenges of living on the island. Subscribe on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. And BC Today is the call-in show where British Columbians make their voices heard. And now you can watch it on television, stream it on CBC Gem, and hear it on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Listen.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi is here with our BC-wide weather forecast as we look at one more pulse of precip.
Yep, just the remaining moisture from the atmospheric river. We've gotten the last bit of that, and we can all take a deep breath. We've gotten through the worst of it. River levels are coming down. The Squamish River and the Lillooet River both coming down, so the risk of flooding either stagnating or declining, so a bit of good news there. Well, this last bit of precipitation will be the last we see of it in a while. We start to see a little bit of that snow spread to more areas over the next 24 hours as those temperatures slowly come down, but we don't see too much snow because then the precipitation pretty much dries up. So if we take a look, accumulation over the next 24 hours, and we'll hit pause, you can see a little bit more rain coming, and that's pretty much all we're going to get on the south coast. You can watch those numbers, but they won't change, so I'd check out the rest of the province because we see a little bit more snow in places where recently we'd usually be getting snow at this time of year, but we've been getting pretty much rain instead, particularly in parts of the southeast. Even at high elevations, freezing levels have been high, so we've been getting mostly rain where we should be getting snow. And then we even see a little bit of precipitation in parts of the northeast. A bit of good news there in terms of the drought situation, because I can definitely use some precipitation. And then across the south coast, you can see that we've zoomed in a little bit more rain coming from many areas, but barely a whisper of what we have seen in the last week or so. And if we zoom into Vancouver, even at high elevations, even on the North Shore, not looking like too much, around 10 to 20 millimeters at most, and pretty much all of that coming in the next 24 hours. So in terms of temperatures, they are starting to come down. We'll see that cold air spread a little bit further south in the next few days, so we're a bit of a return to seasonal. South coast will be the last to really budge, but starting mid to late next week, we'll see those temperatures come down back to seasonal as well, which is around 5-6 degrees. And then in terms of conditions, a little bit of activity still happening on the coast, but pretty much even on the mainland, it's really just a chance of showers tomorrow, and they'll just be scattered. So even though temperatures are coming down, you might think, oh, some good news for the local mountains as those freezing levels continue to decline. But unfortunately, it's not quite the case. We still get a bit of rain in the next 24 hours. But after that, we're pretty much dry for the days ahead. As you can see here in our 5-day forecast, we get a little bit more rain tomorrow. Unlikely on Saturday, but Environment Canada has it in as possibility of a drizzle. But I don't think it's going to happen. And then we do get that pretty much consistently dry and a little bit cooler forecast. So still no skiing, I'm afraid.
We wait. Darius, thanks.
Thank you.
And that is your late news for Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.